Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Shavi Zane, and I'm coming on to bring a message specifically catered to the chosen. Okay. Now, this message is in regards to that spiritual shove. Some of you have already gone through this process. So if you have, it will be very beneficial to leave a comment, below. That way, those who are just now coming into this place or are currently in this energy will understand that it is a part of the spiritual journey. So, the spiritual shove, what does that mean? Okay, well, obviously a shove don't sound so fun, okay, because this is entitled "That's the Spiritual Shove." That spiritual shove ain't nothing nice, okay? That spiritual shove ain't nothing nice because it isn't. Now, generally, people go through the spiritual shove when they have a spiritual calling. And so that is the Most High and your spiritual team coming together to say, this is going to hurt a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of aggressive. It may cause some chaotic energy, but it's a very necessary shove to push you in the right direction and get you on the path towards your destiny. Okay. So, especially when you have a spiritual calling in this time, year number 7, the age of Aquarius, you got a lot of people that are awakening, that need answers, that needs guidance, that needs healing. And those who are the chosen, who have a spiritual calling, you got to come up out of those regular 9 to 5s where you at a job that you hate anyway. Your creativity is suppressed, and move towards your destiny. That's not the easiest thing to do when what you've begun to build your life on is material things. And most people have. That's part of the conditioning of society, is to believe that you have to have a certain educational background or you have to have a certain type of job um, in order to maintain certain day-to-day things. But consider, we're talking about maintaining. So that puts you right into survival mode, okay? And that's a very dangerous place to be because it's easy to get stuck there for the rest of your life and to pass that same type of mindset and energy down from one generation to the next, which is what we have done based on this conditioning. And so the spiritual shove is to get you into that place where you stop asking, is this a necessity for my survival? Okay. And instead you start to ask, is this an asset for me to thrive? Okay. No longer asking, is this a necessity for my survival? But moving into the mindset of saying, is this an asset for me to be in thriving mode? Not survival mode, but thriving mode. Two completely different ends of the scale. Survival mode keeps you in fear. It keeps you feeling as if, okay, I can't leave this particular position because I can't leave this person, place, or thing because if I walk away from it, then my security is no longer intact. Okay? Is generally what's underneath the surface of that energy is codependency. Then you got to go back a little further. You begin to peel back layers. So that spiritual shove pushes you out of your circumstances. You might find that you was in a relationship for 25 years and then all of a sudden things just come crashing down and you can't even explain why, even though you might have seen it coming. Most of the time we see the signs and the symbols and the red flags and all of that. You might have been in a career for umpteen years and then suddenly things just shift. It's because you're being pushed into a different direction. You might have had a specific religious belief system and then suddenly you lose your desire to be amongst these people because it just doesn't feel right anymore. That is that spiritual shove. And it doesn't come without consequence. It's both good and necessary, I guess what some might call bad consequences that comes with it, because the spiritual shove, when you have a calling on your life to do something spiritual, to be a teacher, healer, or whatever you're called to do in the spiritual world, you end up taking losses as far as material things, people, and just your whole reality begins to shift. That's the part that's the hardest. That's where the pain comes through with that shove, because it's like you feel like your security is no longer there. But once you start to go a little bit further down your path, you start to realize that when you was in that energy, like when you was deeply in that energy and submerged in that religious belief system or that job or the career path that you really didn't like, or that relationship that you was really just over, you was in survival mode then. You didn't feel secure then, but you had convinced yourself through the illusion of your own mind that, well, if I just hold on to it, then at least I have something to stand on. When in fact, that was shaky from the beginning because the foundation was not solid. So the spiritual shove pushes you down your path. I was watching a movie, so this is somewhat of a spoiler alert, okay, for those of you who haven't seen it. It's a movie called Alice. I just happened to stumble across it last night. And it was actually one of those movies that kept my attention, which is hard for certain things to keep my attention nowadays. But it was based on a true situation with a woman who was enslaved. She herself and her family was enslaved by some Europeans somewhere deep down south in Georgia somewhere. And um, they were all afraid to leave this plantation, but many of them wanted to. They kept going back and forth asking a question like, I just feel like there's something else out there. Have you ever tried to run? And so her husband came to her one night and was like, we have to get out of here because, of course, the European kidnappers, they was raping the women and, just doing all types of crazy stuff in order to incite fear and to just pretty much please their own carnal lust. Okay. And so the husband came to Alice and said, we have to get out of here. Are you with me? And she said, yes, I'm with you. So he got bold enough and brave enough. He got up the courage and the strength to say enough of this. And so he ended up, really getting into a big tussle and a fight with one of the kidnappers, what they like to call slave masters on the land. And the guy had a gun and he ended up shooting him when he got ready to run. And so Alice was very traumatized by this, but she wasn't just traumatized. She was traumatized to the point of anger, true anger. Okay. And so the kidnapper of the plantation, like the head kidnapper of the plantation, she was in the house with him. He had her as the house slave. Right. And so one day she got so mad thinking about this situation that she damn near clawed his eyes out. And it was a couple of times that she had to fight. He tried to restrain her, but she kept pushing back until finally she said, I'm out of here. She ran so fast through that wilderness. And you could tell that she was terrified running through the wilderness. It kind of reminded me of the Snow White movie, which I really do feel like now that I'm understanding it better. Also, that is a depiction of the enslavement of the people that's native to this land and how they pretty much made us their servants and put us to sleep, okay? Put us to sleep through their spell work and their rituals and their religious systems and the fear tactics and all of that. So anyway, she ran through this wilderness and she was just looking around, and she just was screaming to the top of her lungs, but she realized that she got away. So she kept running and running until she hit the highway, and suddenly cars was just zooming past, about to hit her. And a big truck, Common was in the movie. He was driving a truck and he pulled up on her like, do you know what are you doing? Why are you running in the street? And she just looking like, what is this machine? She had never seen these types of things before. She had no idea that these types of things existed because her and her family had been conditioned to believe that where they was at, that's all there was. There was nothing else out there in the world behind those trees, behind that forest. There was nothing else that exists. And so she ended up coming into the realization after reading multiple books that they had been free. They had the opportunity, the Emancipation Proclamation, whatever this thing that these people so-called signed had already been put in place. And so she had already been free. And so it just had her weeping and weeping, and it gave her the power and the strength to say, no, I'm taking back my identity. She took off those old clothes from 1900. She picked out her afro. She put on her some leather pants and she got to stepping and she said, I'm going to go and face these people so that I can free my people and let them know we don't have to stay here. We've been free. But they convinced us that we were still their slaves. They convinced us there was nothing else beyond the bush. There was nothing else beyond the lifestyle that we have been taught to become addition to and to teach our children to stay in. And so she went back and she saved her family. Okay. That's just to, kind of give you a quick synopsis of what it was about. But she had to come to realize that that was the spiritual shove. The pain and the agony that she had to go through, even just thinking about, just trying to fathom the fact that her husband had been shot and killed right in front of him. When she went back, though, he was actually alive, okay? Which that part kind of surprised me too, but he was alive when she went back to go get her people. I guess they had hid him off in a bush somewhere so that they wouldn't know that he was still alive. But either way, it pushed her into her purpose. And her purpose was to find her identity, to let go and to shed the identity that the kidnappers had given her, to come into remembrance of the strength and the power that she naturally possessed, and to use that fuel and that power to go back and to save the others. This is what the spiritual body, those of you who are chosen in Christ consciousness, this is what we are being prepared to do. Or this is what you have been prepping to do, okay? It's not, it was never a punishment. It was always preparation, okay? Not a punishment, but preparation. And so when you find that you've been going through these things and you feel like life is just kicking your ass and you feel like you've lost everything, because I'm gonna tell y'all, my spiritual shove was one of them real shoves, okay? It was a shove that could have took me down if I would have allowed it to. But I recognized that, because I had already come into a place of awakening prior to being shoved. And so I knew that it was the Most High, my spiritual team, saying, you got to go. There's things that we need for you to do. And so if it means that you're going to have to go through the wilderness alone, and you're going to have to, only have just you and your connection with us in that wilderness, it's going to feel scary. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel lost because you don't know what's beyond. You can't see beyond the path that you're on. You can't see that far ahead. I had to start looking with my spiritual eyes, because looking at my circumstances through my natural eyes, it could have taken anybody through straight depression, anxiety, depression, fear, and I had to realize, I kept telling myself, like, we have everything that we need. There is no lack, because there really wasn't. The reality was the illusion that I had been fed or led to believe, in my upbringing, was that you have to have X amount of space in order to be truly secure. You have to have a specific dollar amount that you're making hourly in order to feel truly secure. You got to work for somebody. You have to have a specific license or a certain title in order to, and all of these things was just a part of my conditioning. Because when it comes down to it, I went to school to get my registered nurse's license. I did my CNA. I did all of these certifications. I went to hair school. I even started to do medical assistant. It was so many different avenues that I call myself taking, because in my mind, it has to come attached with some sort of certification. I got to be able to show and prove that I'm worthy of being able to create security for myself. But that was all a part of the illusion. Because here I am sitting in my purpose, doing exactly what Mother and Father created me to do. And none of those things have anything to do with what I'm doing today. Now, that might not be the case for everybody, but when you have a spiritual calling, usually those doctorate degrees, those licenses, those certifications, and all of those different things, they get pushed to the back burner and they become a distant memory. Because it becomes greater than what man can teach you. And it's all about coming into remembrance of what the Most High created you to be. That's something that can't be taught. Now, you might go down your spiritual path and you might find that you grab hold of someone else's hand that can guide you a little bit further down your journey. But most of the time, even that is temporary. Because as a spiritual healer or teacher, you are not meant to hold somebody's hand the whole way that you take your path, because that creates a spiritual codependency. And so there comes a time where, even as a spiritual teacher, spiritual coach, leader, healer, whatever you want to call yourself, if you have clients that have been coming to you for an extended period of time, even then, at some point, you have to release their hand. Sometimes it can be abrupt. Sometimes it can feel just downright where it's like, well, I don't, because when the Most High and my spiritual team tell me it's time to let go of somebody's hand and give them and allow them to continue down their path, I do it. I can't always understand why I'm being told to do it, but I do it. And no, I don't waste any time giving explanations because I don't always have an explanation. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes it takes for you to release somebody's hand in an abrupt way, because that spiritual shove, it's not something that you get prepared for. When somebody come up to you and shove you, they're not gonna say, hey, I'm getting ready to come and shove you, so I want you to brace yourself. No, they just gonna come and shove you, okay? Because you got things to do. So that's what it really is. It's that energy of propelling you towards your destiny. And so if you find that everything is in chaos, depending on where you're at, okay? Everybody's on different timelines. If this is your timeline where you find that everything is in chaos, everything is in upheaval, you feel like you've lost everything, you've lost everybody, you don't understand what the heck is going on, come out of your head. Stop looking through your natural eyes and start paying attention through your spiritual eyes. Recognizing that that's what this is all about in the first place. Awakening your spiritual sight so that when you get ready to do your spiritual work, you're not operating from the ego. You're not looking at circumstances and trying to evaluate and diagnose through your natural eyes. You're looking through your spiritual eyes to recognize, okay, this person has this ailment because, okay, it's deeper than the knee that's hurting them. It's deeper than the sore, swollen knee. What's behind this knee? What's causing them to be slowed down? Because a sore knee is going to cause anybody to slow down in their walking. So what's behind this? Let me dive deeper. Let me take a deeper look through my spiritual eyes. It trains you to be able to see life past the matrix, past the illusions, and into the true reality. And in the true reality, there's infinite possibilities. There's no such thing as being boxed in to one way of seeing things or one way of understanding things, because you recognize that, again, there's infinite possibilities, not only on what could be the issue behind this, but also how this can be solved and fixed. And so you never feel a lack of knowing how to utilize your gifts, because you're always in that energy of creating, because there is no lack. This places you in a position of seeing life from a totally different perspective and using your spiritual eyes to navigate. I call it the spiritual navigation system. Okay? And so don't look at it as a punishment, because it is preparation. You have a divine calling and you might have been putting it off. Some of you have known this for a long time now. And you'll say, but I always kind of felt that I was here to do something. I always felt like I was a teacher. I always felt like I was a healer. I did recognize that I have this gift or that gift. You're not just being given gifts just to be able to say you got them. You're being given these gifts so that you can use them at a time such as this. And so the only way that you can step out of the ego and step into that space of saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it, is to get shoved for many people. Because most people can't begin to fathom, okay, I got these spiritual gifts, but I mean, what am I going to do with them? And how am I going to even generate revenue or income by using my intuition? Like, where did they do that at? How? You feel like you have to have a skill. You feel like you have to have a training. You feel like you have to have a certification or a license in order to create abundance. And it just doesn't make sense. Because it's the same analogy of, I think I've told you all this before. It's like a orange tree. From the very moment of this conception or its creation, it gets planted into the soil. It was created, though, to produce oranges. If that orange tree suddenly decided, well, I want to produce apples. I don't even feel right producing oranges. I want to produce apples. That's what I'm supposed to be producing. And now it's trying to find ways to train itself to become like the apple tree next to it. That orange tree is not going to thrive. It's going to be killing itself slowly but surely. And it will produce very little oranges, if any, because it's too focused on trying to produce apples. Even the trees and the animals do not buck up against their purpose here. It's only the human being that resists their purpose. If your creative gifts are spiritual gifts, then that means your calling is a spiritual calling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Again, you're not being given these gifts just to sit there and say you got them. But many are called. Not everybody is going to take the call. And so you might find that you get that spiritual shove. Some people won't make it through the wilderness. Because consider that woman Alice, when she was running through that wilderness, if she ran into a wolf, if she ran into a rattlesnake, if she started to hear noises that just scared the hell out of her, that could have pushed her back to that plantation, because it pushes her back to a level, her comfort zone that's not so comfortable. Same example of, okay, you lose that job and you know that your spiritual path is showing you that I have a divine calling on my life that's spiritual. But because you get into the space where you're so afraid of what that might look like, you're afraid, okay, what's going to happen, 6 months from now? I got pushed out of this job, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm going to have to go find another job. It only makes sense. What do I can't just pursue a spiritual path. Where's the revenue going to come from? And so what'll happen is it'll push you right back to that job. If not that job, or to another job that's similar to it, then you'll find yourself getting up every day all over again, completely miserable in what you do. That lowers your vibrations and pushes you further and further away from your purpose. And it causes the healing process that you have to go through as part of your transformation. It causes it to take that much longer, because the energy that you're operating from is too low vibrational for you to see, the benefit of healing and thriving and being in a lighter energy. You can't do that if you're waking up, clocking in to do something that you hate every day. But your only focus is survival mode. Your only focus is, I got to pay the bills. Do you really think that when I was going through what I was going through, the Most High put me in a position where my hands was tied, though? The Most High, Mother and Father, and my spiritual team said, when we give you this spiritual shove, you better be prepared for not being able to even have the option of going to work as a registered nurse. Because when I got out there, I had to leave the state that I was in, because my family had gotten broken down. Things just went chaotic. I had to leave my son here with his father. I took the other 5 of my children, drove way out to the East Coast, stayed with some family who ended up telling me, hey, after a couple of months, they said, hey, you got to get out of here, because the landlord is saying it's too much noise and it's too many people. So, but this is in the middle of COVID though. But when I got out there, I had no identification. How does that work? I had no driver's license, no state ID. And so I had no way of transferring my registered nurse's license to the East Coast. This went on for over a year, because COVID ended up happening 1 month after I arrived there. So everything was shut down. So I had no access to be able to retrieve my information from, the state that I'm in now. Had no access to do it, because all of these government buildings that or government establishments that will be able to provide me with this information was closed down. I tried multiple occasions, and initially it was so frustrating, but I had to realize, I told myself, I said, there's a reason why there's so much resistance to me working as a nurse again. And at first I didn't understand it, because I'm like, well, if I'm not doing that, then what am I supposed to be doing? Show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And so when my family members told me, hey, we can't have y'all here anymore, I went into a place where I started just giving thanks to the Most High God. Like, I know you taking me somewhere. So I started just praying and praising, and doing my spiritual work and cleansing and purging and, healing and breaking of generational curses. And I mean, in that cocoon where it was just me and my babies in the wilderness, I had to learn how to get into thriving mode and to move past the illusion of what my physical eyes was showing me. Because again, if I look with my physical eyes, I had nothing. We were sitting in a hotel room, one bed, different hotels we had to go through until I finally got to an extended stay where I had a regular size refrigerator and a stove that I can cook on, because that's all I wanted at that time. I just kept asking the Most High, just give me a regular size refrigerator and a stove so I can cook for me and my babies and not eat out of the microwave, because we did that for months. And once I got to that extended stay, it was like a year and a half to 2 years that I stayed there with my children. And I had to convince myself, like, we have everything that we need. I'm infinitely abundant. I have an overflow of abundance. I'm rich. Everything that I need is readily available to me when I need it. And when I tell you things would happen, things would happen. I mean, I remember I had applied to receive cash benefits and food stamps while I was out there. I didn't even, hold on, I applied for the food stamps. I did a half of an application to apply for the cash benefits. I didn't finish it because they kept kicking me out. Every time I tried to get past a certain point, it would kick me out of the system. And so I was like, this is some BS. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm telling y'all, I had a couple of $1,000s that I had gotten through the whatever that check was that they was given during COVID. I had about $3,000, and that's what actually gave me the confidence to go to the extended stay. And I said, I'm going to step out on faith. I know it might cost a lot, but I'm going to step out on faith that when I get here, I'm not leaving until it's meant for me to go to the next step. And while I'm here, I will have everything that I need in order to cover the cost. And I did. The Most High did not let me dash one toe. We never went hungry. And like I said, I had halfway applied for this cash out in the East Coast, and I knew it wasn't going to go through because I didn't fill out the application fully. A couple of months, it was about 3 months down the line, I looked at my card one day and I had thousands of dollars on this card of cash. I think it was like $7,000. And when I tell y'all, I just started giving praise and thanks to the Most High, like, wow, when, what? It would be things like that that would happen just out of the blue that would cover everything that we needed to have covered. It was so many different things that came through while I was in the wilderness, but I started to learn how to really live and thrive, okay? No longer being codependent on anybody. And I had my older brother. He did help me for a couple of months as well. Shout out to him, He did help me for a couple of months as well. He did the best that he could do. But once that time lapsed and people got things they got to take care of, I recognized that the Most High was taking me out of codependent energy. I had to start healing myself from codependency. Not just that type of codependency, but codependency on substance. Because I smoked weed for 20 years. And I just knew I was going to grow old smoking my doggone herb. You best believe that. But I came into an understanding once I hit a certain point of doing my spiritual work, and I started to read for others, and I created my other YouTube channel, Shavi Zane, the spiritual counselor. I had hit a brick wall where it was like things wasn't moving. And I started asking the Most High, my spiritual team, like, why am I not having breakthroughs? And I've been putting in all of this spiritual work in terms of like moving to the next phase of, I knew I was supposed to be moving somewhere to another phase, another level, because it seemed like things had just kind of, flatlined a little bit. And it was revealed to me that my addiction, my habit of smoking marijuana was suppressing my creativity. Because any addictive behavior patterns that you have is directly connected to a blocked, either overactive or underactive sacral chakra. And so your sacral chakra is where you create. That's near your womb. You see what I'm saying, for the women, or that's near your genitals for the men, where you create. And so if it's blocked, then so is your creativity. It's almost like a writer starting to write a book, and then suddenly they have a brain freeze. They don't know what else to write. Suddenly it's just, they get stuck. It was that type of creative block that I was having. And so once I started doing the work on myself and I started purging, writing, burning, and releasing, lighting my candles, doing my salt baths, connecting with earth, finding other ways to redirect my creativity and my energy. It took me about 6 months. That was one of the hardest things that in order for me to release was that particular habit, because it put me in this mindset that, okay, I don't have to completely deal with what's happening around me. I can kind of go get a little high and feel a little different about the situation. But the moment that I released the herb habit was when I started to see that it was still a lot of junk and shit that I still hadn't even cleansed and healed. And that's why my creativity became blocked. So there's different levels to this thing. When you start to fully evaluate yourself in the wilderness, there's no distractions. In the wilderness, there's no electricity. There's nothing. There's no people there when you're thrown and shoved into the wilderness alone. You don't have any distractions there to keep you from facing yourself and shining that light on yourself. And so this is why, if you're experiencing anything similar, if you're taking what seems to be losses, it's because you're being prepared for something greater. And I can guarantee you, as a living witness sitting before you today, that it will be well worth the tribulation. It will be well worth the shove, the pain that comes with that shove. It will be well worth the so-called losses that you thought you had to take, because when the Most High gets ready to rain down on you, your inheritance is going to be far beyond anything that you could have ever imagined. And it's going to be a harvest that keeps on giving. It's not going to be something where, okay, it's good today and a couple of years from now everything just plateaus. The only way that can happen is if you get off your path and you forget where you came from, and you start to forget the importance of staying balanced spiritually, keeping the practical and the spiritual in alignment and balanced. That's the only way that things could get thrown off, is through you. And so this is where you have to come into that space where it's like, you got to be ready for this. Not everybody is ready to take on the call of being a spiritual healer or a teacher. But just know that for those of you who know that this is your purpose and you ready to take on that call and that position, you're going to be greatly rewarded in divine timing and divine order. And if you feel that there's something that's blocking you from getting there, just know that there's still work that needs to be done. This is one of the reasons why, because I'm going to be closing out soon, but this is one of the reasons why the Most High sat me down, because I was guided to create these cards. I'm telling y'all, I was using these cards for myself during the time of me being in the wilderness and sitting in that hotel room in an extended stay out in on the East Coast. These cards are old, y'all. Okay, you can see they old, they dusty. Some of them, they all cracked up. All of these cards are the same cards that I've been using. You see how old they are? Over 2 years. I had made my own cards, and I sat down one day and I said, show me what I need to do. Show me what I need to be putting on these cards so that I can have direct communication with y'all. This will be my sign language, my visual tool that's going to allow me to communicate with my spiritual team to show me where are my blockages. What do I need to heal? How can I become the practitioner to myself? 2 years I've had these cards, and I've been using them for quite a number of people, but I had to first use them for myself. You become the practitioner to yourself first before you could be the practitioner to anybody else. If you are not healed, then the work that you're doing for others is not effective enough. You might find that it's kind of effective, but the breakthroughs that you could be having, because this is all energy. And so if you find that you're hitting roadblocks, order these cards. It's well worth the investment, okay? And this is going to help you to pinpoint and to directly target. Let's just pull a couple of cards real quick, just so I can show y'all how these work. So what you would do, I have the instructions written on the cards. When you order these cards, the instructions on how to use them, how to write, burn, and release is going to be on the last card of the deck. And you'll pretty much just call on the Most High and your spiritual team and give thanks that they're providing you with protection as you go into the well of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And you'll ask, what are my blockages? What are my blockages? Or you might even ask, well, what am I supposed to be gaining from this? What's the lesson behind this? What wound are you trying to reveal to me through this trauma or through these losses? What are you trying to show me? Okay. And so I'm going to just pull some random cards. You know, if it resonates with you, then great. But this is going to be very beneficial for y'all. To heal yourself, but to also use them to help heal others when you do step into your calling as a spiritual teacher or healer. Whether you're an herbalist, Reiki master, you know, a teacher, a tarot reader, whatever it is that you do to bring your gifts forward, your spiritual gifts forward, this will be highly beneficial to have. So this one says, afraid to be your authentic self around others. And as you can see, it's red. So this is dealing with the root chakra. Something going on with the root chakra for some of you in terms of being your authentic self. And part of going through the spiritual path, you got to lose the identity that society created for you, and you have to take on and accept and embrace the one that you are organically, your organic identity. And so in that movie Alice, she took off that dress. She cut them the braids that she had out of her head, and she picked out her afro. She put on her makeup. She put on her leather pants and her shirts, you know, and she got to stepping because she was like, this is who I am. Who that kidnapper, so-called slave master, portrayed me to be. That was all conditioning. That was an illusion. That was the illusion. So you have to get to a space where you're no longer afraid to be your authentic self around others. That's very important, because in order to teach others to step into their organic nature and to rise into their divinity, they can't be afraid to be their authentic self. And so this is something that you yourself would have to push through in order to move towards, really accepting and embracing who you are. I have difficulty manifesting your desires. This is dealing with the crown chakra. Okay. So these are cards that you would write down. Okay. So you will write down, I destroy and release the following: fear of being my authentic self around others, difficulty manifesting my desires. You can even clarify these cards if you feel like, because I got 105 cards in this deck. So it'll give you full clarity of what the wound is, why it's there, and how you need to heal it, because now you're targeting the chakra specifically and you know what blocked them in the first place. Feeling a sense of abandonment. Okay, this is also dealing with the crown chakra, but this can also be associated with the root chakra. Okay, then I have avoidant behaviors. So you might even avoid your purpose. Okay, you might get into the habit of avoiding your purpose and only focusing in on those things in the material realm because some part of you is like, nope, I'm just not ready. Okay, so that sense of abandonment is, when it's dealing with the crown chakra, it's that sense of abandonment that the Most High has forgotten about you, that somehow you just don't have that connection to your spiritual team. Like, where are they? And do they really, is this really my path? Because if it was my path, why am I going through this? That sense of abandonment could be feeling like you're disconnected spiritually. Okay. But this is where that difficulty manifesting your desires also is associated with the crown chakra, because those thoughts in your mind, you might be stuck in your head thinking like, okay, but if the Most High doesn't have my back, and if I don't have that divine connection to my spiritual team, then who do I have? And so then you get to overthinking and having a lot of negative thoughts. And in that energy, you're not manifesting the things that you desire. Instead, you're manifesting the things that you don't desire, because you're always manifesting. Your thoughts are always creating something, good or bad. So when you are really aware of that and you really come into a place of knowing that this is true, because trust me, I had to learn this. Some people really just think that, oh, that's just something that they just saying. That's that new age stuff. You think about it and you create it. It's real, because your thoughts, a mind that's full of toxic thoughts creates a vessel that is full of toxicity in more ways than one. So this is where you want to purify your vessel. And part of purifying your vessel is beginning with your thoughts. So you may definitely have a hard time manifesting what you desire because you're feeling like you've been left out in the cold, and that divine connection, somehow the Most High is not seeing you or not hearing your prayers. But that's not true. You're just being called to shift your thoughts and to step into that crazy faith that says, I can't see it. It's not here in the physical in front of me for me to be able to even prove to anybody that what I feel is true. But in spite of me not being able to see it with my physical eyes, I can see it and feel it through my spiritual eyes and my spiritual sensations. And so you come into a space of knowing, not believing and not hoping, but knowing that everything is going to work out for its highest good, and that on the other side of these changes and transformations exists your birthright, your sovereignty, and your inheritance. When you get into that place, doors begin to open. You outgrow your circumstances. And so let me see, I'm gonna pull two more from this deck, because right now the dominant energy, what I have two of, is the crown chakra. So then it would say, when you see that, you would say, okay, I see more cards that's associated with the crown chakra energy. So let me put more emphasis on my spirituality. Okay, more emphasis on making that divine connection to the Most High in my spiritual team. How do you do that? You begin to work with them directly, going out into nature. Okay, this is the card that gives you the instructions. I was looking for this earlier. It was mixed up in there. But this is going to be at the back of the deck, okay? And it's going to tell you how to use the card. So that's very important to know that that's there for those of you who are like, well, I don't know how to read cards. I don't know how to, do this and that. You do know how to do it, okay? And so then you have light sensitivity. This is dealing with the third eye chakra. Some of you are needing to get out into nature, get out into the sunlight. Sun gazing is very, very powerful when it comes to balancing your chakras and awakening your spiritual vision, and activating your DNA. Sun gazing, very powerful. It is considered the solar rays, and your eyes are the windows to your soul. So the solar rays is going to raise your soul, okay? It's going to raise your vibrations. So when you sun gaze, you're bringing all of that powerful energy, and it's going into every part of your being, spiritually, physically, and suddenly you begin to awaken. Suddenly you begin to come into remembrance. Suddenly you have a different amount of energy. You have a heightened amount of energy. So many different things that comes through sun gazing. It's very healing. You just have to know when to do it and how to do it. So you want to look into that before you just start looking at the sun. Okay, when the sun is first coming up or when it's going down, or if it's a cloudy day, you don't have to necessarily look directly at it. You can look at the rays of the sun, and that's still powerful enough. You can close your eyes and allow the sun to hit your third eye. There's many different ways that you can sun gaze, but you want to connect with the sun. So let me see. Also, okay, so I have two cards coming out. So I have another one that deals with the crown chakra. So out of all of these cards, we have three cards that show crown chakra energy. This says lack of faith. See, I was just talking to y'all about faith. It says lack of faith. So one of the reasons why you haven't been able to manifest those things that you desire is because there's a lack of faith. So you want to start, you could do a writing, burning, and release, and I destroy and release all thoughts, emotions, and fears that prevent me from having the highest form of faith, or the highest energy of vibration of faith, however you want to word that. But that's another thing that you want to write on that paper. You want to also put, I destroy and release all avoidant behavior, feeling a sense of abandonment, difficulty manifesting my desires, a fear of being my authentic self around others. And then this last one says lack of honesty or integrity when communicating. This could be not that you just going around telling lies, but you see it's associated with the throat chakra. I feel like it more so deals with you communicating your truth, you communicating your spiritual experience, you communicating from an authentic space, because the first card says it's a fear of being your authentic self around others. Part of that would include what you communicate to people, how you communicate the thoughts that you're having, the way that you see the world, the way that you're experiencing the world. These are all a part of you expressing your true identity through your communication. And for some of you, this part is very important because a large part of what you're being called to do deals with communicating. It deals with speaking. Some of you might be spiritual teachers. So you have to be able to openly communicate your spiritual experience, and those spiritual uploads that's coming through, they don't, most of the time, they don't make sense to most people. But whoever is supposed to hear that message will hear it and it will resonate. I can't tell y'all how many messages that I have brought through on this channel. Being a channel, being a vessel, and just coming forward and just expressing them like fresh out the gate. Soon as they come in, a spiritual upload comes in, I'm like, whoa, that was big. Then I might write a couple of things down and I just press play and I just start talking. And it has nothing to do with, and I had to put my ego to the side and say, I'm not worried about what people think about me. I can't be concerned whether or not somebody's going to call me crazy or say you worshiping the devil or say that ain't what, you ain't getting those messages from the Most High and that's not spiritual. I couldn't be concerned about that. I had to only be focused on what I was called to do and to get out of my own way so that the Most High could speak through me, so that whoever was supposed to hear the message would receive it. And so if I continue to stay in this fear of being my authentic self, fear of speaking my truth to others, and fear of bringing my spiritual experience to others, then it's a lot of people that would have missed out on being reawakened and reminded of the power that they possess. Because I play my small role in this, and everybody else plays their role in this. We are all one body. And so this is the part that's very important. Bottom of the deck. It says loneliness or shyness. Okay. And as you can see, this is green. So this is dealing with the heart chakra. So the loneliness could definitely come from being in that hermit mode energy. You had to take some losses. Part of that shove, that spiritual shove, meant you had to be shoved away from certain people. So it could put you in that hermit energy. That's a very common thing for many of the chosen, especially when you got a spiritual calling, okay? Because you need to go into that cocoon, and you can't take people with you in a cocoon when you're transforming. It just doesn't happen. And so the loneliness, but also the shyness part. So you can also put that on that paper where you said, I destroy and release the following. You're going to put on there loneliness, shyness, lack of integrity or honesty when communicating, okay? These are all the things that you want to write, burn, and release. Call on the Most High and your spiritual team, giving thanks that you now have clarity, giving thanks that they are now clearing those energies out of your way so that you can continue to move down your path to what you was divinely guided to do. So I just gave y'all an example of how to use my cards and why they are highly beneficial in your spiritual path. And for those of you who have already gotten past this point and you know that you are a spiritual teacher or leader, these will be highly beneficial for you to help others. So that is my message in regards to the spiritual shove. Keep pushing forward and know that everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to happen. It was destined for you to go through the things that you are going through, and you are going to look back and you're going to say, wow, I get it. I get it. There's no part of it that you're going to be confused about. You're going to understand why each specific detailed moment had to play out exactly the way that it had to play out. You won't be blinded to it because it's going to be shown to you. And you're just going to sit there and smile and say, wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Okay. So your testimony will be a large part of how you help others to heal and to get through that phase when they begin to go through it. So just know that that's, you don't want to hide that. You don't want to allow your ego to get in the way of you being openly and honest about maybe being homeless, maybe losing everything. That's a part of this journey, okay? Because you lose material things to gain your spiritual wealth first. And after you've gained that spiritual wealth and richness again, that's when you begin to attract the material things. But now you have a greater appreciation for it. Now you know how to use it. Now you know how to maintain it where it's going to be now generational wealth. So I love you all. That's my message for you. I know it was a little long this time, but sometimes it gets like that. If you want a private reading from me, email me. Don't forget, I do offer sessions on how to read tarot. So you can also set up a session for that. You can order my cards through my email, and you can order my hair and body oils through my email as well. Everything is through email for now until I get me a website up and going. I'm still kind of old school in that way and a little bit stubborn, but eventually when I'm probably going to end up, doing that at some point. And when I do, I'll let you all know. So please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel and comment below. Let us know what your journey has looked like and what your spiritual shove looked like so that others can gain some understanding and, some empowerment from your testimony. So I love you all, and I'll talk to you all next time.